What if we've been missing the starting point? This week I came across two papers. On their own, they're interesting, solid, and absolutely worth reading. I've linked them below for anyone who wants to dive deeper. But together they tell a different story. And I can't shake the feeling that we might be looking at this all wrong. One paper looked at something deceptively simple: the lingual frenulum, tongue mobility, and its relationship to sleep apnea. Not just whether it's present, but how it connects to craniofacial development. What they found was striking. Reduced tongue mobility wasn't just a local issue. It was associated with measurable changes in craniofacial structure. A more retrusive mandible, altered geometry, reduced airway space. And more than that, those structural changes explained over half of the relationship between tongue mobility and sleep apnea severity. Pause there for a second. Not correlation, a mediated pathway. The second paper looked somewhere entirely different, or at least that's how we tend to think about it. It examined children with sleep-disordered breathing and their neurocognitive performance. Across multiple domains, including attention, memory, executive function, and IQ, these children consistently performed worse than their healthy peers. The proposed mechanisms were familiar: sleep fragmentation, intermittent hypoxia, disrupted architecture. But the part that stays with me is this: these effects are happening during critical windows of brain development, when the prefrontal cortex is still forming, when learning pathways are still being wired. Not downstream, not later, now. Individually, neither of these findings are new. But together, they form something else: a thread. What if it isn't a tongue issue, a dental issue, a sleep issue, a behavioral issue? What if it's a developmental pathway? What if we're looking at something that starts with structure, or even function? A restricted tongue, altered oral posture, changes in how forces are applied during growth, which then influences craniofacial development, which shapes the airway, which affects breathing during sleep, which fragments sleep, alters oxygenation, and changes neural signaling, which, over time, influences cognition, behavior, and learning. Structure, function, airway, sleep, brain. Not separate systems. A sequence. And yet we don't approach it that way. We screen sleep after symptoms appear. We evaluate behavior in isolation. We treat structure in silos. We refer downstream. By the time a child reaches a sleep study, or struggles in the classroom, or is labeled with a diagnosis, we are often several steps removed from where the signal began. I keep coming back to the same thought. What if sleep isn't the problem? It's the clue. Not an endpoint, not a diagnosis. A window into something upstream, something developmental, something modifiable if we see it early enough. I don't have a fully formed answer here, but I do have the growing sense that we're missing an opportunity. Not because the science isn't there, but because it's scattered across disciplines that rarely speak the same language. Dentistry, sleep medicine, pediatrics, speech and myofunctional therapy, neuroscience, each holding a piece of the same story. So maybe the next step isn't to prove anything new. Maybe it's to connect what's already in front of us, to start asking better questions earlier, to start recognizing patterns before they become diagnoses, to build a front door instead of waiting at the back end. If you work anywhere along this pathway, if you've seen pieces of it in your own field, I would love to hear what you're noticing, because I have a feeling this isn't just two papers. I think it's a signal. And I think it's a clue.